And then for our final section, we're going to talk about bus equipment. And Tim Wagner is joining us today. He's with the Three Rivers School District in Hamilton County. Tim, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. So again, we looked at all kinds of options. What could we do? And as you guys are very familiar, we've had all kinds of things from barriers between the seats, shower curtains around the driver, you name it, it was discussed. So ultimately, the thing that drives us are our state and federal laws, and the Highway Patrol specifically on our vehicles. So just a reminder, even if you think you have a brilliant idea, if it is not approved by the State Highway Patrol, it is not legal for you to have on your bus. So that has driven a lot of our conversations as to what's going on. So if in doubt, ask before you put a bunch of holes and you modify and change your bus to find out that potentially you may cost thousands of dollars in repairs that you have to make your bus available. And if you've done it to your whole fleet, conceivably you could eliminate your whole fleet from being able to be used. So ask before you go. So used equipment, to evaluate the options as viable. They have to be, as I said, standard. They have to be practical, cost effective, and able to implement in a reasonable amount of time. So as you're looking at that, if you're going to put a barrier behind the driver, you're going to look at the cost of plexiglass versus Lexan, and that's significantly different in prices. And remember, a lot of this stuff is temporary, so you want to think about what is the cost versus the benefits. Next slide. Again, as we've said many times, the driver may wear a face mask, they may wear a shield, but the shield needs to be good quality and not distort any vision. The drivers should have available gloves available for them for cleaning. They also were encouraging you to provide protective gowns to be worn while cleaning the bus as well. So not while driving, but while cleaning the bus in between, depending on how you as a district are going to handle those cleaning duties. Next.
I just want to jump in here real quick. Here's a case where things are changing so fast. When we wrote this says bus drivers may wear a face mask, and just in the last 2 days, ODH has come out with a new guidance that drivers must wear a face mask. So we'll be updating these things as we move forward.
Yes, good catch on that, Pete. Hand sanitizer is probably one of the biggest things that's come out of here. Is it may be, according to the state, it may be equipped with hand sanitizers. We were talking about how do we do it, and where do we place it, and the reality is all of you have different buses from different years, different manufacturers, and you're all going to buy different pieces of equipment. We're encouraging you not to put that right next to the door. Pete, if you want to go to the next slide, I don't remember where that comes. Yeah. If they are, as mentioned earlier, don't put them right next to the door, but put them where it's practical, where it's out of use. We do have later in the slides, we have a link to a guideline for a tool that you should use as a hazard. Okay, we don't want backpacks or anything catching on it. So basically, you take a 1/2 inch bolt, 36 inches of string, and you drape it over things. And if it catches, that is not a place that it should be installed. So one of the things that you may, if you have not purchased, if you're going this direction, if you have not purchased it, foaming units use considerably less product to do the same job. So you will not go through as much product once you're going, if you go to a foaming unit. We've ordered, and not received them yet. They're battery operated, hands-free, so nobody has to touch it. Again, you're going to have to figure out what works best for you in your district. And again, use the test to make sure that the sanitizer is not going to catch on a backpack on that process. Again, bus ventilation, you're going to want to keep the windows and the vents open. Buses equipped with roof vents should have that front edge in the back, so we're sucking air in and out. And then when the bus is sanitizing, as we just mentioned, it should be open. Something that just crossed my mind as we were talking about that earlier is a lot of you have buses where your heat recirculates versus direct air from the outside. And I think you would want to look at having, telling your drivers not to recirculate their air, but rather always bring their air in from the outside. And obviously, as it gets cold, right, someone just said, what happens if there's cold? When it gets cold, your bus is just going to take longer to heat. We have for a while been running our vents open, or at least our back vent open in the winter. And most of your buses, once they get warm, have enough heat that having that roof vent open is not going to keep your bus extremely cold, unless we're talking significantly cold temperatures. So again, it's going to do that. So running their fans, we didn't actually even talk about running your fans. I think honestly, this is just my quick top of the moment thought. You're driving down the road, air is moving all over the place. So, you know, if the driver's going to be comfortable, I would think, I don't know how that would affect anything other than air movement is a good thing. Cleaning supplies, we are allowed to store there. You see the photo. So the fans I was thinking about were the fans that are the driver's comfort fans that are in the defrosting fans, not the fans for the heating and cooling, or I don't know that anybody's got cooling, but for the heating. If you're going to store your cleaning supplies in that front seat, make sure they're strapped down or in an outside storage compartment. They can't be loose within the bus. The other thing that we've talked about is that 6 feet. We are allowed to remove the lower seat from the bus in that front seat and replace the metal with padding. And that is a possibility so that nobody sits there. This is sort of a side note. In Hamilton County, our health commissioner has told us that if anybody comes down with COVID, then anybody within 6 feet of them on the bus will have to go into a 14-day self-quarantining situation. So one of the things that for me, we are now looking at, and that's just something that came out on Monday, we are now looking at, we already are talking about having that seat out or the padding out, but we don't want anybody within 6 feet of our driver because we don't want to quarantine 3 or 4 of our drivers for 14 days because somebody in the back of their bus or somebody sat on their front seat when we could have avoided. So continuing on. Cleaning supplies should be removed at the completion of the route. Face mask and gloves dispenser may be mounted for students to use if you're going to go into that direction. Again, none of this is required. Each district's going to make their decisions based on what they feel is best for their situation. Next. If you are going to go to the social distancing, we encourage you to use the painter's tape, other tapes like clear tapes or duct tape, and that can leave a significant residue in there. So if that is a direction, another option would be get to some of the vinyl signs that you would put on there. But just think about anything you're putting on there when you take that off. None of these products were designed to be used 6 months, 12 months at a time. So you may even want to go back and remove the tape after a little while and put tape in a different spot. Next slide. Remember, signage cannot be added to the outside of the bus, so you can't have a mask required or anything like that without violating construction standards. Signage inside the bus, if you use that for hygiene or anything, it needs to be secured properly. It can't cover any safety information, and again, it can't obstruct the driver's visibility. The driver's protective barrier has been approved. In the slides that will be up there, there's a connection to that, what those specific requirements met. We really, at this point in time, have not seen kits that are readily available. and may not really be a practical option based on cost and installation time. One of the things that we've brought up in the comments is any of us who've driven a bus, you're driving down the highway at 60 miles an hour, a 7th grade boy or a cheerleader decides to spray perfume, the boy decides to take a shower in Axe, and it takes almost no time for that smell to get to you as a driver. So the question we've had is how much will a plexiglass barrier behind the driver actually do to reduce or eliminate a virus spreading? The mask is going to be the most important part in this. Again, if that's something you want to do, refer to the state, the Ohio State Patrol, their guidelines, and make sure you follow those guidelines. You can't just tape it in, you have to mount it while you're going. So next slide. As mentioned before, air purification systems are approved. You're going to want to see the language specifically on that. And again, it's going to be a cost. They have to be mounted properly. I think probably the best way to think about it is how we mount video cameras. They can't be loose. They can't be in the way. They can't cause an issue if you were to get into an accident. I think we're going to see in the next year or so, we're going to see a lot more coming out in those directions. Is that something that we can use right now? It may or may not be something that's cost effective for us. Next slide, yeah. Hand sanitizer, again, it has to be stored securely, less than 12 ounces. And then we talked about the front entry, and you can see there that it can't be more than 6 inches deep, 7 inches wide, or 12 inches in height overall as it's mounted. Next slide. We've talked about the barrier. We can go on with that. That slide can be a reference for you as we move on. Air purification, yeah, that was the same thing. More information on that for you to look at. We did talk about the handrail procedure. You'll see there on the bottom of the link is a link to National Highway Transportation to see exactly how to build the little tool and how to use that. The Highway Patrol has not said that we have to use it. We just think it's a best practice. It's of no cost to create one, and it's a good way to make sure that you're providing safety for your kids as you're looking at where are you going to mount those hand sanitizers. Continuing on. That's all you, Pete.
All right, so these are the folks that volunteered and have served on the task force. And so bringing this to closure, a couple things I want to share with you is that one, this PowerPoint and the reports from the task force are all posted on OSBA's new webpage that's called Transportation After the Pandemic. The second point I want to make is that I think it's important for us to remember that we have to operate within legal parameters. I saw some questions come through the chat room saying, well, will the patrol do this or will the legislature do that? And I guess the answer to that is none of us know. This is a new normal for all of us. State agencies are reacting as quickly as they can, just like your districts are. And what we have strived to do here is to pull together, based on experience of the 29 folks working on this team, looking at their experience, what works, what doesn't work, and some ideas. Some of these ideas may work for you, others may not work for you, and you'll have to decide. Again, at the end of the day, it's going to be a local decision on how you do. Just remember that if there's requirements out there, you have to live within them. So in closing, we have a great success record of pupil transportation in Ohio. And for decades, our superintendents, our school boards, and our districts and communities have said, here's what we need, here's the buildings, here's when we need the students to be at school. And as transportation officials, you've gotten it done, and you've done a wonderful job. This year, there's a bazillion questions, and The transporters have questions, the superintendents have questions. And let's face it, if all you got is questions, then we're in paralysis mode and we can't get anything done. So what we decided to do is start taking some of those questions, putting in the assumptions in there that we gathered from different places. And the goal of the task force's work was to help you to answer your superintendent, your school board, your community, saying, here's how we can get children to school, as opposed to, here's why we cannot get them to school. For us to say to our communities, we can't do it, and here's why we can't do it, that's not why they use us. We're a valuable resource, and our mission has always been, let's find a way to get the children to school. If the community wants them there and the superintendent wants them there, we need to find a way to do it. So our goal was to find ways to do that. Again, hopefully we've provided enough ideas for you that something in here will work. If it doesn't work for you, perhaps it will spur some other thoughts. There's a great value of the wealth of knowledge that exists within the peer community that is Ohio's Transportation Administration team. And reach out to your neighbors, but know that what may work in your neighbor's district may not work in your district. So again, thank you for joining us today. All this information will be posted. We have recorded today's event, and that will be posted also on the Transportation After the Pandemic site. And thank you and have a great day.